Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today called Winning SEO for SaaS. I'm Paris Childress. I'm the CEO of Hop Online, and I'm joined by Galia Mladenova, who is our head of SEO here at Hop Online.
Nice to meet you guys.
And we have a great presentation in store for you today. So why don't we get right to it? Let me go into screen share mode. And wait, let's see here. Yep, that's what I wanted. And now we should be presenting. All right. So today's webinar is about how to create a winning SEO strategy for software as a sales businesses. And it's all about getting that sweet organic traffic and ultimately helping you on your mission to lower customer acquisition costs. We've done a previous webinar around analytics solutions for lowering customer acquisition costs. But today we're going to really focus on lowering that customer acquisition costs by increasing the free organic traffic from Google. So we've introduced ourselves, but again, I'm Paris, CEO of Hop Online, and Galia is our SEO team lead here at Hop Online. And we are your faithful hosts. A quick run through some housekeeping things. In the Livestorm webinar, you'll see on the right panel of your screen, there's an opportunity to chat with us. And Galia will be taking a look, while I present, Galia will be taking a look at chats and also questions. We're not going to be using polls today. And I do encourage you all in particular to put any questions that you have that come up into the questions area so that we can review those and address those at the end. So we'll be doing probably about a 20 or 25-minute presentation, and then we're going to follow that with Q&A. So please get those questions ready. All right. The webinar is really intended to help B2B SaaS marketers who ultimately are looking for new ways to gain an edge and lower their customer acquisition cost. But it can help a lot of other people too, other stakeholders in a SaaS organization that could be managing marketeers or managing marketing budgets and looking for better ways to optimize or distribute those budgets. I think this is going to be very interesting for you folks. And also digital marketers who are currently working on SEO for SaaS websites. There's going to be a lot shared today of things that you can think about when you're actually in the process of working on SEO. So we have really four major things on the agenda today. I'm going to start with really trying to make a case for why SEO really needs to be a major part of your marketing strategy and a big part of your digital marketing mix. And then I'm going to turn it over to Galia, who's going to describe, first of all, how are SaaS websites different? And we're going to compare the scenarios of why SaaS websites are in some cases at a disadvantage, but in other cases are at a real advantage when it comes to SEO. And then Galia will wrap up with some particular concrete steps that you can take to really win with SEO, regardless of the situation that you're in right now. And then we'll go to Q&A after that. All right. So let's start with the why before we talk about the what. And why should SaaS businesses really care about SEO? Because after all, you're under a lot of short-term pressure to achieve growth. And usually the best way to achieve short-term growth is through paid advertising. And I assume that a lot of you are doing that. So why should you really care about SEO? Because SEO is something that takes many months and it's not always guaranteed. Well, one major reason is that once you establish good SEO results, you can really cut your cost of customer acquisition, and you can make that even more predictable and reliable over the medium to long term. And the reason that you should start SEO now is because you do have to get those building blocks in place if you want to achieve more predictability of your acquisition costs in the future. Paid advertising, which is what I assume a lot of you are doing now, can become what we call a race to zero. And there are a lot of risks in relying only on paid advertising for your growth, because if you are in a very competitive space, and I assume that many of you are, then competition will continue to push CPC bids higher, and you'll continually be seeing a rise in your customer acquisition costs coming from paid advertising. Even as you optimize further, there's always going to be competitive pressure pushing those costs higher. And SEO gives you another outlet to get free traffic and free conversions and customer acquisitions that can offset this potential race to zero that you might be feeling or experiencing in paid advertising. So SEO and content marketing, which are really two sides of the same coin here, will give you a long-term predictable investment. So if you're hoping that your business is going to be alive and thriving 1 year, 2 years, 3 years from now, then part of that is going to be because you've had success with SEO, and the time to start is now if you want to be in that position to be enjoying that predictability 1 year from now. Another more practical thing to note here is that still most people click on organic results in paid search. The statistics are still showing that about 2/3 of clicks, in fact, are going to the first 5 non-paid results. These are, people are still understanding ads from organic and scrolling past ads and clicking more often on organic results. And there is just extremely high ROI from being in those first 5 results. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that just like with paid advertising, this is a highly competitive space. And most of your competitors probably are doing SEO and targeting a lot of the same keywords and building content around those keywords just like you are. And you generally can't afford to lag behind them either on the paid advertising side or the SEO side. SEO is really a long-term race, and the further ahead you get from your competitors, the easier it is to sustain that lead, which is not the case with paid advertising. And people, as you build your brand, and many of you are very focused on building your brand, you can be sure that people are going to be Googling you regardless of SEO. So you also have to really consider how your brand appears organically in those search results, because people are going to be coming to check you out, and they're going to be looking also at different reviews and wanting to understand what other people are saying about your brand. So are your competitors doing it? And maybe there are some ways that you can figure out how successful your competitors are at doing it. And if you do discover that your competitors are doing it, and the ways you can tell are really just observing how committed they are to creating great content, then the reason they're doing it is because it works, and they're not just doing it for kicks or for fun, but they're actually getting a positive ROI from this. And if you see competitors having success, that's one clear signal that there's market share there for you to gain as well, and you could have similar success if you execute well as they do. And of course, targeting paying customers will help you lower your customer acquisition cost. So people who are searching for those really high value, using those high value keywords that you know about from your paid advertising, a lot of those people, in fact, the majority of those people are clicking on organic results. And if you can get that click for free instead of having to pay a high cost per click through advertising, then obviously that's going to lower your customer acquisition cost. So this should be part of a long-term strategy to go against the rising trend in bids and in customer acquisition costs coming from paid advertising. And organic traffic is going to help you offset that and hopefully lower your overall cost per acquisition over time. And really, it also helps you look past just demo users or trial users all the way out to paying customers, because usually people that are coming through organic search results are at a place where they are pretty far along their user journey. they're in a research mode, and it probably means that if you can win them at that point, at the bottom of the funnel, they're most likely going to convert into paying customers at a higher rate than through other channels. So by getting in front of people in search results, you have the advantage there that they are probably well-informed and they have a high intention to buy, and better to get that click organically than through paid advertising if you can. So we did mention this customer journey, and generally it starts with being aware of a problem that someone has and then starting to research different solutions to that problem. So then you move from the awareness phase into the consideration phase. And this is where really most of the real research happens. And then finally, there is a conversion. There may be a purchase, or there may be a conversion to a trial, which leads to a purchase. And then finally, as a SaaS marketer, your goal is not only to win that first customer, but to keep them as long as possible to maximize their lifetime value. So there's a post-purchase experience as well, which brings people into a loyal customer base where you want to drive high customer lifetime value. So with organic SEO, you can target your ideal customers both early in their journey when they're in a more awareness stage and they're looking for information and to get educated on certain topics. And then you can also catch them later when they're closer to the point of conversion. So it's very useful really along the entire journey. Also, a big part of SEO, and one of the ways that SEO has evolved, especially in recent years, is that it's becoming more and more closely connected to the user experience of the website itself. And I wanted to draw some connections here, because paying attention to your user experience, first and foremost, is good for your user, and it should help you achieve higher conversion rates from all the traffic to your website, from all channels, not only SEO. But Google, and as Google is coming and crawling websites, Google is getting better and better at understanding a quality experience and quality UX on a website and rewarding your SEO for that. So the UX that you should also be investing in alongside SEO is going to support your SEO, but always, of course, most importantly, it's going to be good for your users. And I think Google now more and more is able to really empathize with and put themselves in the shoes of the user. So one thing to always remember here is that great SEO means really solving the user's problem first and foremost, and trusting that Google will empathize and understand that and reward you for that. And part of the user experience is speed, and mobile speed in particular, because most of the searches now on Google, more than half, are coming from mobile devices. And this in particular is an area where we see a lot of our SaaS clients still struggling with relatively low scores on the loading speed. So this is also about trust, because mobile devices really, and apps on mobile devices have really trained users to expect lightning fast experiences. And when that isn't reflected in a mobile website, then it really destroys trust from the user. So this is one example of really putting UX first by starting with solving for great speed. All right. So that's really the end of my part of this presentation. I think there are a lot of great reasons. If you're not already investing in SEO, I think hopefully I've helped to convince you why there are a lot of great reasons to start doing that today, because you're really building a foundation for the future that will reduce your reliance on paid advertising and help you ultimately lower your long-term costs for customer acquisition and make that much more predictable than it is today. So now I'll turn it over to Galia, and she's going to help us understand how and why SaaS websites are different.
Hey guys. So what we wanted to, before we dig into the more practical part of the webinar with some advice or concrete action items that you can start doing pretty easily, we wanted to highlight what are the benefits of SaaS websites and why they're better from an SEO standpoint. And the first thing that we want to start with. Can you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So the first thing is technical SEO. I'm going to go a little bit deeper later in my presentation about this part of SEO. But what we want to highlight in here is that usually SaaS websites are smaller than regular e-commerce or news or other type of website, and usually the conversions on a SaaS website, they're closer to lead generation compared to other types of conversions. So basically, you have the chance to develop your website as a high quality content website in order to target customers at all the stages of the buyer's journey. So this is a very big advantage from an SEO standpoint, because a website with a smaller number of pages is a much more low maintenance. And also usually the platforms that we have worked with SaaS clients, they're usually much easier. You don't rely on a third-party platform where you don't have the ownership of the code. Usually the SaaS websites, they're either custom-made or using an SEO-friendly platform like WordPress. So this is a very big advantage for you to make pretty easy changes with some tags that are important for SEO, sitemaps, redirects, or structured data implementation, which sometimes for bigger website can be a very, very big challenge. And what we mean by easier usually means lower investment, which is always a big benefit, which means that with a lower investment, you can have a pretty nice results. The next thing that we find very important for SaaS is that you have a very great very fast development. So this drives marketing growth. You probably know that the marketing teams are having very high goals in terms of customer acquisition. So the team works at very high speed, and also the product evolves constantly. So there are new features that are added, new markets that are being targeted, and all stuff like this makes it easier for this fast growth makes it a lot easier when it comes to SEO, because it gives you new opportunities to target new customers very easily, new customers, new markets, new buyer personas. What we say at our agency is that usually it's almost impossible to run out of ideas, because the SaaS platform evolves a lot, so there is always something new happening. That is an opportunity for development in terms of organic. So the other thing that we the other advantage of SaaS companies is that they have valuable in-house resources. And in here, what we mean is two things. One thing is the dev resource. Usually when you can rely on good developers, this means that your technical SEO is going to get covered. As I mentioned earlier, technical SEO for smaller websites usually doesn't take that much resources. So you can usually easily find a junior developer in your team who can help out with some SEO tasks. And so this when this is handled internally, this means that you don't have high costs, especially if it's a junior or somebody who just started at your company. And also this cuts communication time and makes everything a lot more faster. The other item that I want to highlight is that the people that own SaaS companies, they're usually very well known in their niche, and this is they can use their name as an advantage for the brand, and they can share their authority and expertise. We're going to talk a little bit about authority and expertise later also, but this is very valuable knowledge that can be used. And very often when we meet with SaaS customers, they say we don't have a person who could try it. We have a lot of people with good knowledge, but they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, and so on. Basically, what you need is pretty minimal time and a very, very good editor. This is what we have found, because if you have the authority and the expertise, especially in-house, you can create some great pieces of content that can rank very well with using your name as an authority figure. And the most important thing you need is a very good editing. The last thing that I want to highlight over here is also the data that SaaS companies usually gather, and they can this can very well work in terms of repurposing, because what we are focused on is getting as high results as possible using what is already available. So a lot of, especially in the B2B sector, there very often there industry data published in reports, some email marketing journeys that are being created, and the data in there, the intent for it is to be gated, but some pieces of it can be usually pretty easily repurposed and used for organic purposes, so that you can get more visibility in search. And the other thing is sometimes you have quite a lot of data, and it requires some digging, but there can be some especially for companies that have a little bit more that already have a bigger database and more experience. They have been for 2-3 years on the market, but if you're working with maybe more than 100 customers, with the data that you already have, you can make some great charts, graphs about what's happening in your industry, because you have enough people. And I can give you a very simple example for that. I've seen some pretty nice data pieces from SaaS companies that are working with in the hotel niche or airline niche, that are starting to see the first signs of the travel sector beginning to recover. So when you have this bigger customer database, you can say that the bookings have grown with 50%, or when people are more likely to book a vacation, just based on the data that is available in your software. And this is data that you can just easily take advantage of if you have it in the right formatting, and if you just have the right idea for a great content piece that would be interesting for potential customers, because such industry trends usually they're noticed within the business niche that you're working on. So here is the I suppose the most interesting part of the webinar. What we wanted to summarize in here are some steps that you can use in your SEO strategy, some stuff to work on, and maybe some stuff that you have underestimated. So I'm going to be honest, some of these steps are pretty big, but we're going to walk you through what we have seen as most common problems and opportunities for growth for SaaS. So the first thing, I already mentioned the technical SEO aspect, and it's something really, really crucial. What we have heard a lot is people saying, I have created great content, I'm getting organic traffic, I don't need this, and so on. But believe me, if you also work on the technical side, many times this is not something so so hard, you're going to get a lot better results if you already have the great content. So this is something that lays the foundation of your website. And if you make it easy for Google to crawl and index your website, it would usually very often this leads to quick results. That's why this is the thing that we decided to start with. So the most common issues that we have encountered when it comes to SaaS websites, the first thing that I'm going to mention are the errors and the redirects. So nobody likes errors. This is bad both for users and for search engines. What we have noticed is that in the past years, Google is trying to dedicate less and less resources for crawling, because the size of internet is getting bigger and bigger. So even if you have a small website, you should still think about how to optimize your crawling budget and how not to overload Google with a large number of pages. The key to this point in here, what we have found is that you need a very good maintenance. You don't need just a technical audit that is going to highlight some issues. You can place some redirects on the errors and just forget about your website for the next year. The right thing to do here is to get good monitoring. There's some very good technical checkers or crawlers. Some of them are giving more basic results, but they can work very well for small websites. And the other pretty important thing is here is if you see an error, don't just automatically go to the redirect option, because sometimes errors occur because of a bug or something that has changed or some past issue. And what you need to do is just spend some time digging to find out the source of the error and crush it. And in that way, you know that this is not going to appear again at some point. Because if you have a large number of errors that you have fixed just with using redirects, usually what happens is that after a couple of years, you're going to get what we call redirect chains. An easy example for this is page A being redirected to page B, but then page B gets redirected to page C. And you can basically go on endlessly, especially if you have done some domain changes or URL changes or some other technical stuff like this. So the right thing to do is to set up a very good maintenance for these things to keep Google's crawler happy. The next item, which is also good for your crawl budget optimization, is the XML sitemap. And the most important thing is to keep it clean. By clean, what we mean is to include in there only 200 OK pages that are indexable. Because what we very, very often encounter is that the XML sitemaps are not dynamic, so they're not updated on a regular basis on either every day or every couple of days. And what we get at the end is a sitemap which actually contains errors, redirects, or some pages with no index tags, which it's not a good way to optimize your crawl budget. And the right solution for this is to get a dynamic sitemap with some good rules. And that way you can make sure that you have excluded your thin content pages. You have excluded some pages that may be important for the user journey, but they're not important for ranking. And of course, you have automatic rules that exclude pages that are broken. And by keeping your sitemaps happy, you're going to get to make the crawler focus on the pages that have good content and that deserve to be ranked higher. On the next item, Paris mentioned this in his presentation, the page speed. It is something that Google has been trying to convince website owners to do for about 10 years maybe, and they keep pushing it forward, but it's still very hard to nail this. What we have seen is that mobile usability and page speed are one of the things that's many websites are struggling with. In terms of mobile usability, a very often case that we see is that the mobile UX can be great on a bunch of devices, but not on all sizes. And the other thing that we see is that we have home pages that have great page speed, but the internal pages of the website are loaded with some resources that are actually heavier. And your scenario where we usually find ourselves is a website that was launched with excellent site speed, but then the website owner started adding some plugins or some very heavy resources, or even resources for tracking the user activity, which actually make the website smaller. So this is also something that you should monitor regularly. Otherwise, you can just make a small change on the website, which is actually going to lead to a much slower page speed. The other point that we want to make in here is about accelerated mobile pages. And this is something that you can implement even for just a section of your website. You don't need to make it for all the pages on the website. But if in your marketing strategy, you plan to publish any news-related content, or if you want to rank for keywords where there are top stories box in the search results, AMP can really help a lot to appear in those. And also, this is important in order to appear in the Google Discover feed, which is something relatively new that could show your articles to people that are interested in the topics that you're covering. So AMP can be relatively easy investment. We don't want to underestimate it. It requires some dev resources, but if you have a version of your website in AMP, it can be really great in terms of rankings. And we're seeing in the search results there are more and more AMP pages ranking, because it is and the concept for accelerated mobile pages was developed by Google. So Google is favoring their own product in here. So the next item that I want to mention in here is something relatively new, the so-called Core Web Vitals update, which was announced about a week ago by Google. It is connected to usability, page speed, and engagement. And this is something that they're going to publish in next year. So this is one of the rare cases when we don't have a very drastic Google algorithm update, but we have time to prepare. And probably this is done because it's very clear that this is something that's going to take quite a lot of resources for companies to adjust to that. So this is something basically you have the time to prepare and to know that this is coming. In a nutshell, the most important factors for this Core Web Vitals update are these three metrics. LCP, which is important for a page load of your web page, the FID, which Google uses to measure the interactivity of the page, and CLC, which it uses for visual stability. There probably will be also other metrics that will be included in there. But the good news is that most Search Console users already have the Web Vitals report. It replaced the page speed report. So using this free tool, you can get a snapshot of your website usage and see how if you're doing well with these three items. So if you haven't already, what I recommend after the webinar is to open Search Console, check out these three items. Chances are that you already have this report. What you need is a certain usage of your website, because this is based on real usage of your website in Chrome browser. So if you have if you have a new website which doesn't have that much users, you don't have this data yet. But if you have a bigger audience, you're going to have some data about this, and you can see the scales are pretty straightforward. So if you go in there and see the red bars, check out with your dev team about how you can improve on this. The other item that I want to mention in here is the engagement, and Google already uses some engagement factors. Some of those are confirmed, some are not confirmed, but what we have seen in our practice is that they do play a role in search engine rankings. So what is very important are the bounce rate of your pages, the time that users spent on your pages. And here I have showed you a tip that can be very useful to encourage users to stay longer on a page. We have seen good results with including videos on a page that make the user get engaged with the video and stay longer on the pages. The other important items are the organic click-through rate, which is usually determined by your page titles and descriptions. If they're good and encourage people to click, usually you get higher rankings. And your item is what is called pogo sticking, basically whether if somebody visits your website from the SERPs, if they go back to the SERPs and they click on another result, for Google, this is a hint that your page wasn't good enough. They didn't provide them the information that they used. So the user is going to go back to check out other results or to perform another search. So the next item in terms of technical SEO, I'm just going very, very quickly through those because we don't have that much time. But this is something very important. Probably you have heard about structured data, but what we have found is that a lot of SaaS companies doesn't use the structured data type that is most relevant to their niche, which is the software app structured data. This can get you first, this can get you a better understanding from search engines for the content of your website, what your business is about, and so on. And also you can get some pretty good what we call rich snippet, which means that you can get your star ratings, pricing, or some other useful data right into the search result pages. A couple of other useful structured data types are the frequently asked questions one. I suppose that almost all of your website have frequently asked questions section. And if you have some useful resources about how to do something, there's also specific structured data type for that, which can give you a much bigger visibility in the search results compared to your competitors. So going forward, the other thing that is in between technical and content SEO, I would say, is reaching new country markets, which usually a lot of SaaS companies are competing for the US country market, the English speaking market, because creating a platform that is in English is the easier way to go, especially for an international company. But actually, the competition on non-English speaking country markets can be lower, so you can get better results. And what you need is first adapting your content. If you already have your content in English, it would be relatively easy to get it translated and adapted for a content market. You need to nail, from the technical side of SEO, what you need to nail is the so-called href lang tags, which give Google an understanding of the language and the country market that you're targeting. And also you can take advantage of the option of country targeting in Google Search Console. And this is something great and basically low-hanging fruit that you can get, because on some of the markets you can see much better conversions than on the crowded big English-speaking markets. So the next big part of SEO that I want to go through is the keyword optimization and the content marketing efforts that you create. What we very often encounter with SaaS marketing clients, because usually what we start with is paid advertising, and what they usually tell us is that there's no search demand for their product, nobody's looking for such a specific solution, so they don't want to do SEO. This is one of the reasons we started the webinar with the why question, because many times it's very hard to convince customers to start working on SEO in general if they're in the SaaS niche, because they're very convinced that this is not the right channel for them. So what we wanna explain here is that even if nobody is looking very specifically for your software platform, or for if you're working in a very specific niche, even if people are not literally typing the specific solution that you're offering, usually you're solving your buyer personas pain points, and these buyer personas, it's highly likely that they're looking for a solution that's going to help them with these pain points, whether it would be how to improve my business, how to improve the productivity of my team, and so on. So these more generic keywords can be the right way to get into the eyes of people that are in the top funnel of their journey. So if you think about the pain points that you can solve, usually it's a very easy way to find the right keywords for the people that are going to be subscribers of your content. It depends a lot on your niche, because for some niches they're also pretty bottom of the funnel queries, where usually the Google Ads competition is very fierce. But if you're thinking that your solution is so specific that users wouldn't search for it, first, you can't be sure unless you do a very good keyword research, and second, in almost all cases, you can find good pain points that can help you reach your customers organically. So a couple of pretty important notes in terms of keyword research and content marketing. Some of you may have tried working with some keyword research tools, and sometimes if you have tried the do-it-yourself approach, you have been disappointed by seeing some lower search volumes, especially in the B2B niche. Sometimes the search volume can be lower, which is totally normal compared to the B2C solutions. So what we have seen in here is that search volume can only tell you one side of the story, because in addition to the search volume, what you must look at is what is the click-through rate, because for some queries only half of the people are clicking, or even 1/3 of the people are actually clicking. So many times you can have lower search volume, but if you have a high click-through rate, you can get a good amount of traffic. And your very important metrics that you should take into account are the different elements in the SERP. I already mentioned the top stories, or some other elements where you could rank with videos, with images, or with different items. Here, just I already talked about the low volumes, which are what we have found is that they're not scary, because you need to look at the data more comprehensively. The other thing that we consider very important is to use the language of your users, because many times the way website owners describe their product is not the actual way that people are searching for their products. So don't be afraid to use the actual way that people describe your product, and be very specific about what they need. And the next big item that I want to mention in here is the content optimization, especially if you have done some content marketing. What we have seen is that sometimes you have some pieces that are performing good, some are not so good. But if your content marketing is only focused on creating new content, you're in this loophole where you keep pushing and pushing and pushing new content, and at the end of the day, what is a better investment is to go back and optimize some of the content you already have. Even in some cases, you can do a cleanup with your blog. If you have had several years of blogging, it can be a very good exercise to keep only the pieces that are still relevant. Because one thing that Google really doesn't like, and actually users don't like it as well, is outdated information. So even if you focus your content marketing efforts into having a low number of pieces of content, but keeping them fresh, which would mean updating them every 6 months or every year with new data, new insights, and this can work out very well in almost all projects where we have worked on content optimization. We're seeing positive results. So if you're not doing it, start doing it very closely. I have only 2 more steps to go through, and these are actually pretty quick. So we're close to the end. What I have in here is the abbreviation EAT. I have already mentioned the expertise and the authority that you should pay attention to. Be very careful. Basically, nobody wants to see some resources that do not have a name under them, especially in the B2B sector where people are investing quite a lot of money. You don't want advice from somebody that you don't know or who doesn't have the background, the right background. So avoid being anonymous, and just you can work with a team member to build his name as an authority in the niche, to gain the trust of users. And in that way, when people see his name, they're going to know that they're going to get good advice. And this is actually a very good investment in your team if you don't already have somebody who has a very strong figure. The other item that is very important is the third-party reviews. Almost all websites have some testimonials, which are actually very easy to manipulate, and Google is very familiar with this. So what both Google and people value a lot are the third-party reviews. So don't skip those. And what is good about EAT actually is just like mobile optimization. You should do it not just for search engines, but for your users. And usually after we work on both items like the mobile optimization and the EAT signals, you can also get higher conversion rate from other channels because you are either more user-friendly or more trustworthy. So the last item in terms of EAT that I wanted to mention is the About Us page that requires extra attention. Don't be scared to share details about your team, about awards and recognition that you have gained. And what is very important to that is to keep it updated, because many companies just create an About Us page and they forget about us and never update it again. And the last item that I wanted to focus on after so many SEO advice, we have met a lot of clients, especially in the B2B niche, that have started link building quite early in their SEO efforts, and this can easily lead to disappointment, because you can, First, you need the right people to do the link building. There's some outdated strategies that are no longer working. So what our advice would be in a nutshell is to be very careful not to start with this right at the beginning. We're not saying that backlinks are not important. They are. Just what you need to have in mind is that you first need to lay the good foundation of technical SEO and to create a good content that is worth linking. So our advice is to combine the PR efforts and the link building efforts. If you have a PR team or a marketing team that could get educated for link building, how to combine these together, this could actually work a lot better than paying for links or hiring an external agency for this. What I already mentioned is to stay away from outdated strategies, because Google is very good at figuring those out. So these could actually do more harm than good. And the last item is if you create great content that is link worthy, this is going to work out well, especially in long term. You're going to get brand mentions, you're going to get organic links, which are going to work for your domain authority. So this is something that you shouldn't rush, and you should think about content first, so to say. So these were our tips for today. I'm going to get back to Paris. He'll actually present an offer that we have for all live webinar subscribers.
Yep. Thanks very much, Gali. That was excellent. I just wanted to wrap up before we get to the Q&A. I just wanted to tell everybody out there that we have now a special offer for the webinar attendees. Basically, everyone who has registered for the webinar, whether you're watching live or through a replay. We have what we call an express SEO audit. This is a really quick snapshot of things that you may be doing wrong or areas where you could be improving, both on the technical SEO side and on the content SEO side. It's a very insightful report, very actionable. And normally we price this at around $250. And for webinar attendees, we have a special offer. You'll get it for free with a roughly a 2-day turnaround time. So check your inbox, because we're going to be sending that offer to you all after the webinar. All right. So it's Q&A time now. The fun starts. Hopefully there have been some good questions building up. I'm going to now exit the screen share mode here, and we're going to go back into our presentation, or out of our presentation, back live here. Let's see. Yep. Okay. So now we're back with you live, and let's look at some questions here. There's some chats. Oh, we have a lot of questions here. Okay. We're probably going to go maybe a slightly over time, but hopefully you all will stick with us. So Anna is asking, in terms of content and SEO, is the pillar cluster modeling and interlinking relevant for SaaS companies? The short answer is yes. I will describe a little bit this pillar cluster modeling concept really quickly. This is a content marketing concept where you have so-called pillar pages, which are very, very in-depth, usually pretty long pages around a particular broad topic. And those pages link out to many, many so-called cluster pages. Those could be shorter blog post type of pages. And the pillar pages link out to the related blog posts that are around smaller topics related to the larger topic. And the cluster pages link back into the pillar page. And then all of the cluster pages link to each other also. And if you were to actually draw this out, you get what looks like a hub and a spoke, kind of a interlinking graphic. And when Google crawls this and it follows all those links from all these pages into the pillar page, and from the pillar page back out to the cluster pages, it assigns topical authority to the topic of the pillar page itself. And the end result is that this helps you to rank all of those cluster pages for a very long tail of keywords that might not otherwise that they might not otherwise rank for the specific keywords that they're targeting. So great question. The answer is yes. This is a great interlinking strategy, the pillar cluster model. If you Google it, you'll find some great resources on that. Okay. Veselina is asking, have you tested these steps with a SaaS client and what were those results? And maybe I'll let Galia take this question.
Well, I can actually shortly tell you the story of one of the first SaaS clients that we worked on in terms of SEO. And actually, it was a very hard beginning. It was a bit scary to see lower search volumes. It was also pretty challenging to understand the niche. It was a software that is very specific, data analysis software, which is pretty specific and that can be used by scientists or people that have very high skills of data analysis. So this was a very relatively small niche. But after I think like 9 months, we found the right path, and we see very gradually how the traffic started raising. Right now we have 2.5 times increase in terms of clicks. What we have cleaned up, they were actually ranking for some pretty irrelevant queries. They had a very good technical section where they gave some advice for how to troubleshoot the system, and they were actually ranking for they were generating traffic for people looking to fix their Windows problems, and this was a totally empty traffic for them. What we focused on were queries that were related to the algorithms that you could run within their system, and we've created some great resources working with their author, which has great expertise. What we provided was very good guidance from a strategic perspective, and this relationship is going well. And of course, the first thing that we did was to create a very solid technical foundation for the website. We saw the first results after I'd say five months. Right now we're after a year, and as I said, we have 2.5 times growth, and we expect to keep growing. So this is in short one of our positive SaaS stories.
All right, let's move to the next question from Vivi. What's the most common issue when it comes to page speed? Well, I have, maybe I'll start and try to answer that, and Gal, you can chime in. A lot of the times what we see, particularly with mobile devices, is that the size of the image is it's just their images are too large, and the images are slowing down the loading time of the page. I think images is one common one, and another is that a lot of times there are problems with the CSS scripts, and those are causing delays. So there could be optimization opportunities within the CSS code of the page. Gali, do you have anything else that you think are most common?
What I could add is elements that are blocking the page rendering, and this could slow down your page with several seconds actually. So if you have some plugins or another piece of code that needs to be loaded, that prevents the page from being loaded, this can slow down a lot your website. And the other thing that we have seen great results with is implementation of lazy loading images. If you don't have this is something that can very quickly improve your page speed a lot, because this basically means the large images that Paris mentioned, if they're below the fold of your page, they're not going to get loaded. So this can bring you a much better page speed.
All right. Great question. The next one from Dobry is SEO for desktop and mobile. How should we approach each of them? I think the short answer to that question is to adopt a mobile first mindset and optimize first for mobile. And if you do that well, then desktop will also be optimized well, because most websites now really have a single mobile friendly version, which is suitable both for all types of devices, all mobile devices, as well as desktop. And if you solve for mobile first, then you will solve for desktop as well. And do you want to add anything to that, Galia?
Well, I also agree with the mobile first approach. We have a lot of SaaS clients that are telling us most of our visitors are desktop users, and we see analytics data for desktop users. But this doesn't mean that you shouldn't optimize for mobile, because the way that Google renders content right now is mobile first. So they're going to see the content as if mobile user sees it. I agree with Paris about having a responsive design. What you need to, I would say there are two things that are very important. Make sure that you don't have intrusive pop-ups on mobile, because these could very easily turn off users, and they could also be penalized by search engines. And your item that is important is not to reduce drastically the amount of text for mobile users. Just think about better ways to represent it graphically, because if these two versions, if the responsive design on mobile hides a large portion of the content, this could be suspicious for Google. It could be considered cloaking, a try for cloaking. So these are maybe the two tips at the top of my head that I can share for mobile.
All right. I will go to, we have two more questions. Well, there are three, but two of them I think can be combined. We'll start with this one from James asking, are UX and SEO connected? It's a bit of an open question, and I do think the answer definitely is yes. And we did touch on this in the presentation earlier, but building a great user experience will be clearly recognized by Google. And we feel very strongly that Google will reward websites that have a clear focus on user experience. Do you want to mention anything else, Galia, to that point?
Yeah, we talked a little. I see that the question was from an hour ago, so maybe you heard about the Core Web Vitals update. But basically, Google has officially announced that they're putting the user experience and the user engagement. They'll officially create a ranking factor for this, and there's a big update coming next year. So the answer is definitely yes, and this is something that you should do both for users and for search engines.
Yep. Okay, and the last two questions I think we can merge into one, because both Valeria and James are asking about, it's related to how to get started. So James asks, what are the first steps for an SEO strategy for an existing website? And Valeria asks, what would you recommend for a new site just starting out? Actually, so these are a little bit different. My answer to that would be to focus first on technical SEO, because in my opinion, strong technical SEO provides a foundation for success. And on top of that foundation, you can build great content, you can acquire links, you can have a great user experience. But if you don't get the technical SEO right, and you have lingering technical SEO problems, this is going to be like a ball and chain, just constantly weighing down on your results. So I would answer both in the same way, which is focus on a great technical foundation for SEO as a starting point, both for an existing website and for a new website just starting out. Anything to add to that?
Well, regarding the new website, I think Paris is totally right about the technical side. For a new website, I think it's very important to do a very good research of the competition, and this can give you a lot of insights about how competitive your niche is, so you can create the right strategy. And also, it's very important to do very good keyword research in order to have the structure of your website right. Because a lot of people, when they start a new website, they just rely on their instinct when they decide what to include in their menus. And actually, some of these may not work well for SEO or even for good user experience. So regarding a new website, I think this is what can be very important about an existing website. What we usually start with is an analysis of your performance so far. So we see whether you're ranking for some keywords that are actually not valuable for you because they're not connected to your business goals. We see which are the pages that are the top performance, how they can be improved, where you have whether there are new keywords that you can optimize for and start ranking. This is in addition to the technical optimization that Paris already mentioned. We have some great experience with websites that have quite a large resource section with a lot of great content already, which is not performing due to lack of organization, the so-called hub structure that Paris mentioned. And many times, if you just optimize your existing content and do some restructuring, improve the internal linking, you can get pretty good results with an existing website that has potential but hasn't performed well yet.
Okay, great. Well, I think we've addressed all the questions now. We're a little bit over time, so I think we should wrap up. But thank you, Galia, for a great presentation. Thanks everybody who's listening or watching the replay. I hope this was very helpful and valuable to you all. I want to emphasize one last time, the pressure is probably on you all more than ever before, and we get that, but don't take your eye off SEO, because SEO is still as important as ever. And maybe some of your competitors are taking their eye off of SEO, which means that you have even a better opportunity right now to accelerate with those results. So start taking another look at SEO. We're here to help if needed. We're going to send you this offer that I mentioned earlier over email. And otherwise, have a great day, and thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.
Bye.